Hi, my name is Brendhan Harris, and I'm the fraud director at the New Hampshire Insurance Department's Fraud Unit. Today's series talks about a gentleman who had bought a car, a 1969 Chevelle, in hopes of fixing it up and flipping it and trying to make some money. So he bought the car, and after about a year worth of repairs and putting money into it, he later discovered it's not going to be worth nearly what he was hoping for. In fact, he was probably going to lose money. At that point, what he decided to do was get an insurance policy, and he submitted records like a fake bill of sale indicating he paid $50,000 for the car, and then he submitted a bunch of records that would support that the car is worth about $120,000. What would happen is if something happened to that car, it became a total loss or it was stolen, the carrier would be required to pay $120,000. Sure enough, about 60 days after he's got his insurance policy, he reports that on the day he got his car back from the shop and it was fixed up beautifully, some unknown suspect stole it from his store. That particular night, instead of bringing it home and putting it in his garage, he decided to leave it at a convenience store in the middle of nowhere. It was a pretty unbelievable story. The insurance carrier called him in and did an examination under oath, and they asked him how much he had paid for it. He went through the whole series of the claims, saying that he paid $50,000. As the investigation went on, what we found out was that he had actually paid $15,000 for this car. A little bit more investigation on his cell phone records provided a shop down in Salem, New Hampshire, and there were a number of calls there. So I drove there and interviewed the owner. The Chevelle had actually been brought in there and it had a blown engine. They took the engine out, and some people from a machine shop in the state of Maine came and took it away. Later, this gentleman came and talked to the owner of this shop and said he had sold the vehicle even though it didn't have an engine, and that the new buyer would be coming to take it away in the next couple of days. And sure enough, that happened. What this gentleman didn't tell the shop was that he had already reported it stolen, that it was considered a stolen vehicle. The insurance company decided that they were not going to pay the claim because he had lied about a bill of sale. When we found out that he had actually paid $15,000 rather than $50,000, they thought that was a material misrepresentation, so they denied his claim. About a year went by, and this was during that COVID time where it was hard to go and interview with people, and COVID was now coming to an end, and he resurfaced and sent a letter to the carrier asking them to reconsider their position, and stated that he had in fact bought two 1969 Chevelles back in May of 2018, one for $15,000 and one for $50,000. And he had just forgot to mention the $50,000 one the first time. He said he took the $50,000 car and stripped all the parts off of it, put it on the $15,000 car, and then scrapped the $50,000 car. And he produced a bill of sale which only had a person's name, no address, no telephone number, no VIN number, no email address, no way to verify who this person was on the bill of sale that he supposedly purchased it from. But it did have a name on it. I developed enough probable cause and I did a search warrant on this man's house, and I seized a few important things. Some were the fake records that he had submitted to the carrier initially, like the fake bill of sale indicating he paid it for $50,000. And another item that I took from him was an iPad. On that iPad had some important things. One, it showed a picture of a black 1969 Chevelle that was an absolutely beautiful condition car, probably well worth maybe $100,000. It had the same name as a friend of his on Facebook that showed up on the second bill of sale that had never been seen before. I interviewed his girlfriend, and she said that she knew who this person was on the bill of sale. They lived down in Massachusetts. So with that information, I ran down to Massachusetts, interviewed that person. They were very mad at this man for using his name. They said they've never owned a 1969 Chevelle and they've never sold this man a 1969 Chevelle. Now armed with that information, I was able to go and start to interview my target. Just before I went to go interview with him, as dumb Irish luck, I was running every picture I could find of a 1969 Chevelle black in color on Google, and I found the exact same car that I found on his iPad. What he had done is back in 2016, there was a YouTube video clip of this beautiful black Chevelle, and he watched the video and took still photos from that old video and produced those photos as the new car that he had purchased and then had stripped. He didn't know I had that information until I sat down. I spoke with him. He didn't disappoint me. He lied initially, they all do. And then after about 30 minutes, he began to tear up and cry and began to tell me the true story. He in fact had not purchased two 1969 Chevelles. He had only purchased the one for $15,000 and put a lot of money into it. It blew an engine. He panicked, and he and a friend of his that had been doing work on the car decided they would come up with this fraud scheme of creating fake records, buying an insurance policy for $120,000, and then making a false claim indicating it was stolen, and then get as much money as they can from the carrier and then split that profit. Ultimately, this gentleman was charged with felony insurance fraud and was found guilty. Thank you for attending another episode of Fraud of the Month with the New Hampshire Insurance Department's Fraud Unit. If at any time you feel like you might have some information about some insurance fraud you'd like to share with me, please call me directly. Again, my name is Brendhan Harris, and my telephone number is 603-271-2162.